In a world where nothing is left to chance, every miraculous rescue leads to a new nightmare, and life becomes a battle with death. 1969, Paul plans a romantic date for his girlfriend Iris, inviting her to the grand opening of the Skyview Tower restaurant. When Iris sees the building towering over 150 meters, she feels a mix of awe and fear, but trusting Paul, she agrees to have dinner on the top floor. On the way up, she notices a little boy stealing coins from the fountain and a guard pointing it out as a bad omen. In the elevator, Iris's nerves only grow. At first, there's barely enough room, yet the concierge still lets them in. Then, the door refuses to close properly because of a technical glitch. Pushing through her fear, the couple reaches the top. Iris is startled by the elevator's glass floor and isn't reassured by the fact that construction had finished 5 months ahead of schedule. The elevator doors wobble, slightly ajar, while the mischievous boy continues his antics, jumping around. Iris finally calms down when they arrive, but a strange streak of misfortune begins. First, the host informs them the reservations are overbooked, they're not expected. Then Paul can't find a glass of her favorite champagne. When Iris picks up a rose, she accidentally pricks her finger, and the view from the window terrifies her so much that she can't get close to the edge. At one point, Iris feels nauseous and runs off to find the restroom, where she meets a singer and her young son, JB. Along the way, she doesn't notice a champagne cork hitting a chandelier, causing part of it to fall onto the glass floor and create the first crack. After calming down a bit, Iris agrees to step onto the observation deck, where Paul proposes. She responds with her own joyful news: she's pregnant. It's the happiest moment of their lives, but the joy is briefly interrupted by a sudden gust of wind and the pesky little boy tossing coins. One coin doesn't fall to the ground. It flies into a ventilation shaft and jams the fan blades. Back on the dance floor, the couple decides to join in the mass celebration. They dance and laugh, oblivious to the chain of strange and increasingly dangerous events unfolding around them. A fan blade hurls a coin with such force that it punctures a gas pipe. Slowly, the room begins to fill with gas, while the metal support holding up the building starts to sway. Anchor bolts begin popping out one by one, compromising the structure and making it ever more unstable. Moments later, the glass floor, already cracked from the fallen chandelier piece, gives way. Several people plummet instantly to their deaths. Some try to grab the metal support, but it snaps in half, claiming even more lives. Paul struggles desperately to hold onto a shard of glass, but his hands are slick with blood, and he falls to his death. Panic erupts in the restaurant, and the body count rises further. One woman catches fire after running past a chef carrying a flaming pan. As she tries to escape, she passes the gas-filled ventilation shaft, triggering a massive explosion. The singer manages to hide her son in a metal locker, but she and dozens of others are consumed in the inferno. The concierge urges the survivors to take the stairs for an urgent evacuation. In the chaos, people shove past Iris, trying to descend, but the staircase collapses, killing more people. Desperate, the concierge suggests using the elevator as a last chance. Though designed for 8, over 20 people cram inside. Another determined man tries to force his way in. The mounting stress causes the elevator to break free, sending it plummeting and killing everyone inside. Iris and a few others survive, but the top floor begins cracking and splitting apart. She manages to crawl onto a horizontal surface, while the rest fall. The only thing keeping them from plunging is the glass windows beneath them. Just when it seems the nightmare has ended, that same mischievous coin falls onto a piano, sending it crashing down. The instrument crushes the remaining guests and even the little troublemaker, the only person who had managed to escape the building alive moments before. Iris realizes there's no way out. The stairs and elevator were her only chance to get downstairs. She's trapped, but the baby, JB, survives with her. The other part of the restaurant starts collapsing as well, and Iris does everything she can to save the boy. When most of the building falls, they survive, but the only thing holding them is a wedding ring stuck between two metal rods. Under the weight of their own bodies, Iris understands they're doomed. The ring tears off part of her finger, and both Iris and JB fall, tragically losing their lives. Stefani, a student, wakes up screaming in the classroom, realizing it was all a nightmare. That night, the nightmare repeats itself, and she wakes up again with a blood-curdling scream that scares a roommate. Stefani doesn't understand why she keeps having this dream, but she suspects it has something to do with her grandmother, Iris. Her friend suggests not waiting and trying to find the grandmother she's never met. Stefani doesn't know where the elderly woman lives, or even if she's still alive, but hopes this might finally end the nightmares that could get her kicked out of college. First, Stefani goes to her parents' home, where her father, Marty, and younger brother, Charlie, live. Realizing her father doesn't want to talk about either her runaway mother, Darlene, or her insane grandmother, Iris, Stefani goes with her brother to see Howard, Darlene's brother, and her uncle. His kids, Eric, Julia, and Bobby, barely acknowledge Stefani and openly ignore her since she stopped calling and writing after leaving for school. When Stefani meets her uncle and his wife, Brenda, she asks about Iris and how to find her. Howard doesn't want to talk about the crazy grandmother, describing her as a terrible person obsessed with death who behaved so erratically that the authorities took away her parental rights. Howard and Darlene grew up in foster care, though Iris still writes to them. Realizing Howard isn't willing to help directly, Stefani asks Brenda to drop a hint. Thanks to her kindness, Stefani finds letters from Iris and sets out to the address provided. Soon, Stefani finds a fortified cabin deep in the woods, bristling with warning signs and traps. Iris, who has lived as a solitary recluse for more than 20 years, asks Stefani to hand over her keys, phone, and anything else that could put her at risk. Once she lets her granddaughter inside, Iris keeps her distance, asking Stefani to sit so she can listen to her story. The events from 1969 that haunt Stefani in her nightmares were real, they just hadn't happened yet. Standing on the observation deck, Iris saw the same vision that Stefani had. Knowing what was about to occur, she took the coin from the boy so he wouldn't throw it into the ventilation and disperse the people dancing on the glass floor. She managed to prevent the disaster. The tower didn't collapse, and all the guests survived. But she made one mistake: she interfered with Death's plan. Methodical as always, Death didn't retreat. It began to hunt and kill all the survivors, as well as their descendants, because according to its plan, they shouldn't exist. Paul, like many others, died in an accident. From that moment on, Iris devoted her life to staying one step ahead of death. All this time, she collected information on ominous signs in a handwritten book, learning to outsmart death. She notices the signs, like how a magnifying glass can burn through a rope holding a flower pot, and takes action to prevent events that could lead to her death. She offers Stefani the chance to stay and study her findings, but her granddaughter refuses, convinced that everyone else was right about Iris' madness and obsession with death. Stefani decides to leave, but Iris dares to follow her. Understanding that the reality of Death's plans can only be proven through direct experience, Iris tells Stefani to watch what happens next. Moments later, a weather vane falls from the roof, hitting a fire extinguisher, which then strikes Iris in the head, piercing her through. A few days later, the whole family gathers at Iris' funeral. Darlene, Stefani's mother, also shows up at the site in the RV where Iris had lived alone for years. Stefani reacts aggressively, angry that her mother abandoned the family when they needed her most. Her outburst frustrates her younger brother, who feels similarly betrayed when Stefani left for college. Back at her own home, Stefani decides to study her grandmother's records. She realizes that death is neither random nor chaotic, it's systematic. Certain signs and warnings appear before the strange events unfold, and she can learn to recognize them. When a family photo shatters and a shard lands right in front of her, she knows that death is already near her family. On her way to Howard's house, she sees a message: danger ahead, cementing her understanding that death is no accident, it is fate, relentlessly pursuing their family. When Howard gets home, he decides to throw a family barbecue in the backyard. While getting ready for the fun, Bobby accidentally breaks a glass, leaving a shard in the ice that will later be used for cocktails. Darlene brings cookies, but they contain peanuts, which are deadly for Bobby because of his severe allergy. Afterward, Charlie and Bobby decide to jump on the trampoline and invite Howard to join them. At the last moment, Darlene spots a rake lying underneath and prevents a disaster, but even this turns out to be part of the chain of events. When Brenda sets down a bowl, she accidentally knocks over a beer bottle. It lands on a button, turning on a water hose coiled inside a container with garden tools. Bobby tears through the trampoline and hurts himself, while a frightened Julia topples a Jenga tower. As it falls, it knocks over Howard's drink, and a shard of glass lands on the grass. Stepping on it, Howard cuts his foot and collapses in pain. At that exact moment, a garden tool tips over and activates the lawnmower, which tragically injures him further. After Howard's funeral, Stefani dives even deeper into Iris's records. Gathering the whole family, she shares her observations and tries to convince them that death is stalking them. Since the descendants of other survivors in the tower died in order of seniority, Howard became the first to die after Iris, continuing the deadly sequence. Following the pattern, Eric is next, then Julia, then Bobby. Once Howard's children are gone, Darlene will die, followed by Stefani and Charlie. Brenda and Marty are safe because they aren't direct relatives, so death won't come for them. The family dismisses Stefani's warnings, thinking it's the ramblings of a crazy old woman that she shouldn't believe. That same evening, Eric stays late at the tattoo shop. He locks himself in and starts cleaning, with music and the fan on. Everything seems normal, until another series of terrifying accidents begins. A figurine falls off a shelf, shattering a jar of needles. Eric reacts and moves closer, but just then, a flammable liquid spills on the floor, and the chain above the fan comes loose. By sheer misfortune, it hooks onto Eric's nose piercing and starts winding around the fan's base. Trying to free it, he climbs higher and knocks over a flame source, starting a fire. It seems like he's doomed, but by some stroke of luck, he survives. Even when falling into the flames, his leather jacket protects him, leaving him unharmed except for a heart-shaped scar on his hand. The next morning, Stefani panics when Eric doesn't answer his phone. She and Charlie set out to find him and uncover the grim sequence of events. Stefani is convinced that death is hunting them and warns her cousin, but he remains skeptical. At one point, he even steps onto the street and is nearly hit by a van, yet once again, luck spares him. Stefani starts noticing ominous signs: a lawn trimmer, a leaf blower, and kids playing with a ball. She urges Eric to stay away from the garbage truck, but he ignores her warnings, mocking her fears. Julia refuses to speak with Stefani and heads out for a run, and that's when the signs start to play out. The trimmer falls onto a man carrying a leaf blower, who accidentally blows a ball right into Julia's face. She stumbles into a trash bin, which ends up inside the garbage truck. Eric, Charlie, and Stefani scramble to save her and stop the truck, but the driver, lost in his music, notices nothing. As Stefani reaches for Julia, the compactor crushes her, splitting her body in two. The remaining relatives finally realize that this isn't random. Stefani was right. Death is truly hunting them. Yet they are baffled. Why did the order get mixed up? It should have been Eric, not Julia. Brenda admits she's partly to blame. Eric isn't Howard's biological son due to her secret affair. Marty remains skeptical and walks away, unwilling to take part in the chaos. Understanding that he's next, Bobby begs Stefani not only to predict the signs of death but also to find a way to stop it. They recall a reference in Iris's book about someone who survived and beat death. Hearing the name JB, Darlene remembers that this person worked at a hospital. Darlene, Charlie, Stefani, Bobby, and Eric cautiously make their way there, taking extreme care to avoid triggering death. When they meet the man, they learn that JB is the very boy Iris saved in the Tower restaurant. He explains that he became friends with Iris and helped her find a way to escape her fate. Only 2 people have ever survived the curse, Kimberly Corman and Thomas Burke. JB reveals that death can only be cheated in 2 ways, by killing someone and taking their years, or by creating a new life through surviving clinical death. Stefani pleads for his help, but JB refuses. He is dying of cancer and is ready to accept death, unwilling to risk himself to save another family. While Stefani, Darlene, and Charlie are trying to find other ways to outsmart death, Eric and Bobby make their escape. The older brother suggests starting a new life and offers to help Bobby not just die, but come back to life. Since they aren't ready to kill anyone, their best option becomes a peanut butter cookie capable of triggering anaphylactic shock. Locked in an MRI room, Bobby thinks he's safe, but the closed door causes a tablet to fall and the machine to turn on. Eric grabs a wheelchair, planning to quickly transport his brother to the ER once he passes out. A wheelchair, an adrenaline syringe, and a team of doctors, that's the setup where dying and coming back won't be a problem. Believing this, Eric finally urges Bobby to eat the peanut butter cookie. When Bobby starts choking, Eric just watches, waiting. Suddenly, the MRI machine pulls in Bobby's phone, which accidentally cranks the power up to extreme levels. The surge rips Eric's nose and ear piercings out. The energy keeps rising, literally dragging him into the scanner. He struggles, but the wheelchair presses down on him and kills him. Gasping, Bobby reaches his brother's body and grabs the adrenaline syringe. One injection saves him, and metal flying past a nurse barely misses him. It seems he's lucky, until a vending machine spring shoots into his head. Darlene doesn't understand why Eric died since he's not family. Stefani guesses that death punished him for trying to interfere with her plans. With Howard and his kids already gone, Darlene is next on death's list. The mother and daughter decide to head to Iris's fortified house, knowing she survived there for decades. Darlene decides to follow in her footsteps and become a recluse, but she can't drive. After nearly being hit by a truck carrying logs, she gives the wheel to her daughter. Moments before, Stefani drops a coin from her grandmother's book, which a random elderly woman picks up. The gates are locked, but Stefani crashes through them with the van. At the same moment, a flashlight falls from a shelf, breaking the girl's seatbelt buckle so she can't unfasten it. Seeing all the signs of impending death, Stefani tells her mother to hide inside. If she survives, her children are safe. Death intervenes anyway, triggering a series of strange coincidences. Wiring sparks and sets dry grass on fire. When Darlene opens the door, a draft drags embers inside. One lands on a cable, causing a flower pot to fall onto a gas pipe and trigger a massive explosion that flips the van into the pond. Stefani starts to drown, and Charlie is pinned under debris, unable to get free. Darlene is badly burned but does everything she can to save her son and help him pull Stefani from the water. As soon as Charlie gets free, his mother is killed by a falling beam. Charlie rushes into the van, finds a knife, and cuts the seatbelt. Stefani is gasping and loses consciousness, but her brother performs CPR. Both Charlie and Stefani are sure she was only briefly dead, meaning death's plan has been interrupted, and for now, they are safe. A week later, Charlie is getting ready for prom and heads to his girlfriend's house. Stefani tries to fix the flower in her brother's jacket pocket but accidentally cuts her finger. At the same time, Charlie's classmate's father, a doctor, reveals that Stefani had been unconscious but never technically died. Meanwhile, the grandmother who picked up the coin tries to buy ice cream. The coin slips from her wallet and rolls into the railroad tracks, getting stuck between the rails and preventing them from closing. Sensing the omens and spotting the red car of the rider of death, Stefani realizes, this is the end. She and Charlie try to escape, but a freight train derails and starts chasing them down the street. Just when it seems to have stopped, logs fly out, killing first Stefani and then her brother. Is it possible to accept life's inevitabilities, or is our struggle against fate what truly makes us human? Share your thoughts in the comments down below, hit like if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next one.